two interesting stories on my journal line this morning, both of them alluding to coup d'etats, which is worrying, bearing in mind what's happening in West Africa, right? In Niger, most recently. So Ibo Kwanzaa said on our show, he talked about how he considers members of the current government to be unresponsive. He was talking about the Cecilia Dapa debacle, right? And he said that, these people used to be his friends. He shares ideology with them. He talks about how he's a liberal Democrat. So he tends to align in ideology with many of the people in the NPP government. They used to be his friends. Now, they don't pick his calls. But he didn't make it about himself. He said that if you think about it, if they are not picking his calls as the editor of a national newspaper, then how responsive would they be to the average Ghanaian who doesn't have access to them, who never had access to them? So he's pointing out that they are becoming detached. They are becoming unresponsive to the people. And these are the conditions that existed when Rawlings led a coup. So he's, pointing out the clear and present danger that if governments continue to detach themselves from the people, these are some of the things that can happen. And we are seeing examples of it happening in countries close to us, countries bordering us. Yansako talks about the same thing, how bad governance can lead to coups. And sometimes we think these things are far away from us. But coups are not done by multitudes, not by stadiums full of people. It's usually by one team of people who sit up late one night, smoking cigars, talking about how annoying things are, how irritated they are, how much they have lost through no fault of their own, how hard life has become for them in spite of how hard they are working. And then they think about it and they decide, you know what, nobody will fix this for us. We must take matters into our own hands. Then they stab out the flames of their cigars, pick up their guns, call their friends, and it doesn't take more than 50, 60 of them to overthrow a government. That is what has happened in our history here in Ghana. And this is, if there's any place in the world where history repeats itself consistently, it's Ghana. I will never forget when I started this job, and anywhere I was taken to and introduced, people will say, hey, so right now, Joy, if you are not called Kojo, you can't host the morning show. Do you see how quickly we turn things into traditions here? I'm only the second Kojo ever to host the morning show. At some point, we said, if you are not called John, you can't be president. This is how easily the Ghanaian mind turns some singular occurrence into a tradition. So I'm telling you that if people are warning that the kind of attitude we are getting from our leaders is making it attractive for a coup maker to step up and do what we don't want them to do, somebody needs to listen. But the people who are required to listen are the ones who are detaching themselves.
It's the politicians' thing, isn't it? I think we get to this point in political administrations where you say they are detached. It's like they don't care, or they say totally the opposite of what is happening. They are out of touch. It's something that we experience with, I think, all the administrations. And when parties are in opposition, you can have these conversations with them. They get it. But as soon as they get there, so I don't know. Is there something with being in power? Is this something to do with the power that makes them unresponsive? And this is a man. Ibo Kwanzaa is a man who's lived. He's lived through the Rawlings era. He's lived through Kufuor, and he aligns with the ideology of this administration, by the way, as in the NPP government. So if he says what he's saying, then somebody must really be listening. But you ask the question, are they really listening? Mostly out of touch. They think we are regime changers. That's it.
The thing about a coup d'etat, there are a lot of, the thing about a coup d'etat is that, first of all, there must be grounds for it. And, if you hear the experts talk about it all the time, the reference is always made to insurgencies. You can actually disagree and say that's not one. But if you look at insurgencies, there must be grounds for an insurgency. An insurgency is always backed by the middle class. So look at it from the Fokker theory of Fidel Castro as something that doesn't work and would not work in today's world. If it worked, Che Guevara wouldn't have been murdered. Now, if you look at insurrection, you've seen the military take up weapons and overthrow governments. But like I stated, because you would need the middle class to join, and today we've had a conversation about Ghana's middle class. They're very quiet. We've asked, where's the middle class? Now, one of the things that could happen in today's Ghana is when you have mass protests. Now, we saw it so the Arab Spring, the much touted Arab Spring, started with mass protest. I mean, one man set himself on fire, and then they triggered mass protest, and led to the president of Tunisia leaving, and then it moved to other parts. By the time it got to Egypt, you realize that he didn't want to go, but he was forced to go. My point I'm making really is this: having looked at the situation in Ghana, the kind of protest you need, it just doesn't look like we're interested. It doesn't look like, as a people, where, I mean, we will talk. Even the people that you expect to complain about the conditions are hiding behind the phones and sending you information to say, go and talk. That's what they do. And so, look, because there's the feeling also that I can come to power, a lot of people would wait patiently. And I've spoken to a lot of the middle class who have said, oh, in Ghana, I know it's a two-term thing. I mean, after two-term, another party will come. I'm convinced that nothing will change in this country. So what I'm going to do is that after 2 terms, I'll vote for the next party. They should also come and fleece the state. And I'm like, oh, really? So based on all of these things, yes, I mean, people may always be scared. I have heard a lot of the young people make the point that, we need a reset as a country, so there should be a coup d'etat. And the older ones have reminded them that you were not in this country when the coup d'etat happened.
You have no idea what you're
wishing. So if you know what a coup d'etat is all about, you would not wish for a coup d'etat for this country. And whenever these young ones have been told what the old ones went through during the coup era, they keep quiet and say, oh, okay, then let's wait for the next change in government. But if we ever need a change, that change should start from our minds. That change should start where we say, enough of the duopoly, if we don't like it. Enough of the duopoly. Because the moment, you see, once you send the right signal to politicians that you can't take us for granted, they won't take you for granted.
Yeah.
But if we reduce it to, if it's not MPP, then it's NDC. If it's not MPP, then it's NDC. The MPP man comes and knows that, oh, after 8 years, I'll be leaving office. Let me, gather enough money so that when I leave office, I would enjoy it, wait, and come back after 8 years and enrich myself again. The NDC man would think the same. And today you would have, smaller parties being pro-NDC or pro-MPP. If you don't want a problem in Ghana, you say, oh, I belong to the CPP, I belong to the PMC. But then you are pro-NPP CPP or pro-NDC PNC. That's our reality. So, listening to Christine yesterday, we may be doing a few things right here and there when it comes to security, but the reality also is that sometimes, just sometimes, these protests could be spontaneous. You may not know where it begins.
Could take just one person.
And then it starts.
Well,
so let's be very careful.
Okay, I'm wondering whether you're saying that, because of the factors you've mentioned, so actually there is no risk of any kind of uprising. So politicians can continue to be detached.
I haven't said that.
Okay, because I've got to say, in the past we've seen protests which did not lead to coups. We've seen coups that did not come from protests. So there's no real formula to this thing. All it takes is the right people to get angry enough. So if to be perfectly honest, yeah, we have to change. We need a change of mindset, but that's long term. Short term, the thing that needs to happen to keep us safe from coup d'etats, which nobody wants, well, nobody in his right mind wants, is that these people need to reattach themselves to their original purpose as politicians, as leaders, which is the people. They need to reattach themselves to that purpose. Stop serving themselves and start serving the people. In the short term, that is the only thing that can happen to avoid an unpleasant surprise, if you ask me. That's just my view.